This Week with Bob Mueller on News 2.
This week,
30 districts get to live in almost peace and 5 get to live in hell. And so what we're going to do in 6 months is create strategic plans for those 5 districts with the highest crime rates.
just weeks away from Election Day, tonight, hear from nonprofit and business consultant mayoral candidate Stephanie Johnson.
The General Assembly does have a compelling interest and the constitutional right to protect children.
A court rules Tennessee's ban on gender-affirming care for juveniles will stand, but the fight is not over.
The plan also enables us to be able to add on to beds if we see that we're overrunning.
The Department of Children's Services addresses the youth placement crisis that had kids sleeping on floors.
Gun control!
And weeks away from a promised special legislative session on public safety, and Republican lawmakers say gun reform, orders of protection, or any gun restrictions will not pass. More in our This Week cover story. Hello again and welcome to another edition of This Week. Early voting has begun in Nashville's mayor's race. Tonight, hear from mayoral candidate Stephanie Johnson. Republican lawmakers give little hope for solutions to public safety issues, including gun violence, in the upcoming special legislative session. But we begin with Tennessee's gender-affirming care ban back in effect.
In an unusually timed Saturday morning ruling, the Sixth Circuit of Appeals overturned a successful appeal of the law banning gender-affirming care for minors in Tennessee.
For now, the law is back in place, much to the chagrin of the LGBTQ community.
Being able to get gender-affirming care here at my home has been like life-changing. I tell people that my life kind of started at 26 because I finally felt like I really was who I was meant to be.
Of course, state Republicans are thrilled.
I'm very excited that the Sixth Circuit saw it the way that we do, and more importantly, the Attorney General of the state of Tennessee sees it, and that is that the law we passed is constitutional. The General Assembly does have a compelling interest and the constitutional right to protect children.
The appellate court's move is actually a contrast to a lot of court decisions in the last year or so. Judges have completely or partially iced similar laws in Arkansas, Alabama, Indiana, Kentucky, and Florida, while Oklahoma's is on hold. But of note, the judges who handed down those decisions are in smaller courts. This one for Tennessee's law is a higher appeals court.
They need to be wary, is the word that the chief judge used in his opinion, that these federal trial court judges need to be wary of stopping laws that are passed by the people elected by the people of Tennessee and other states from going into effect.
Now, where do we go from here? This ruling was just a partial one in the sense that it simply allows the law to go into effect temporarily.
On the good days, I'm optimistic and thinking that the law and that justice will rule out and that we'll see a good decision. But we've also seen some really concerning decisions from the Supreme Court on other issues in the past several weeks and months.
The appeals court says there will be full arguments and a complete ruling on the case by September 30th.
Now, whichever party loses that ruling by September 30th can go ahead and then appeal to the Supreme Court. In Nashville, Chris O'Brien.
The LGBTQ community, book bans, and other culture wars targeting schools is causing a nationwide teacher shortage like the one in Wilson County, Tennessee. Here's Kendall Ashman.
I've had more teachers reach out to me in the last 72 hours than I've had in 2 years. And the same thing I'm hearing, we can't take any more.
It was a passionate plea from Wilson County Director of Schools, Jeff Lettrell, at Monday night's school board meeting.
I will have you removed. Time.
After listening to the back and forth on topics of book banning, a transgender student discussion, and teacher retention.
And we cannot keep bringing politics into every meeting we have. This community has got to find a compromise or you're going to destroy our education system.
He points out that teacher shortages are plaguing the entire country.
The teachers are where the rubber meets the road in the classroom.
Over the summer, West Wilson Middle School had more than 20 openings to fill, but that gap was recently closed to about half.
I'll be the 6th principal in 6 years here. The school was displaced 4 years ago because of a tornado.
For the past several years, students have been learning in classrooms throughout the district, while a new middle school remains under construction.
It's been a few years since the family could all get back together.
Principal Josh Johnston hopes the new school is just one way to boost morale.
Yep, it's going to be. We get a chance to kind of hit the reset button, and we get to build it how we want it, and create a culture where I believe it takes a family-like atmosphere. It takes a village to raise kids, and that's what I think. That's what I think a school building should be.
In Wilson County, Kendall Ashman, News 2.
Tennessee's Department of Children's Services is addressing the state's youth placement crisis, which, because of a severe shortage of beds, had kids sleeping on office floors. Here's Tori Gessner.
We've told you about the problems.
Caseloads are too high. Kids are sleeping on the floors. Children cannot live in these conditions.
The youth overflowing from the Department of Children's Services facilities. According to a December 2022 audit, more than 200 kids in DCS custody were spending the night in conditions like these. Today, all 600 plus DCS hardware and staff secure beds are filled, with around 200 more kids waiting for beds at detention centers across the state. Now, the department says it has a plan to upgrade old facilities and add more than 100 beds to fix the problems.
The plan also enables us to be able to add on to beds if we see that we're overrunning the juvenile justice system.
Starting with the old Woodland Hills Youth Detention Center, which made national headlines in 2014 when more than 30 youths escaped. DCS plans to renovate the facility, adding 72 temporary beds. On the outside, they'll build a new fence and make other security improvements to keep kids in. The department will also turn the vacant Clover Bottom campus in Donaldson into a temporary assessment and intake facility where 48 kids will stay while they're going through clinical and mental health evaluations before placement. Despite the progress, some lawmakers are worried how DCS will handle the growing need for more beds in the future.
Seeing what's going on, say, for example, with juvenile crime in Memphis and where that looks like it's progressing, and how those individuals are not really going anywhere other than back on the streets when they get no bail, I would like to see the plan of us looking further down the road and saying, you know, we project in 2050 we need this many beds. Why are we waiting till 2045 to build that?
In Nashville, Tori Gessner, News 2.
Alyssa's Law, named for a Parkland, Florida school shooting victim, is now in effect in Tennessee, encouraging public schools to be equipped with a silent panic alarm connected to police. Tori Gessner explains.
She was a 14-year-old Florida student whose life ended with the sound of 8 gunshots. Alyssa Aladef was killed at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School when a gunman opened fire in 2018. Now, her legacy lives on through Alyssa's Law.
These safety measures are crucial that you make sure as a parent that you get involved with the safety at your school.
It's why Alyssa's mother, Lori Aladef, is pushing for silent panic alarms in schools across the U.S. in her daughter's name. Alyssa's Law just passed in Tennessee, but 16% of schools in the state are already working with the company Raptor Technologies, using the app that alerts first responders of an emergency with the touch of a button, automatically sending the caller's name and location to police.
The whole idea behind Alyssa's Law is that seconds matter. The faster that you can respond to an active shooter event, the more lives are going to be saved.
Another panic alert company, SaferWatch, has already prevented 12 school shootings and improved response times by an average of 2 minutes, according to its CEO.
The quicker and more information we can get to responders, the better. And everyone has access to their phone, right? So everyone has a phone. And it's a simple tool that allows people to do that.
A simple tool helping Alyssa's mom keep other students and staff safe in schools.
And I know that every time that panic button is pushed, that Alyssa is saving lives.
Now to our This Week cover story in the wake of the Covenant School shooting. Governor Bill Lee announced a special legislative session on public safety to make Tennessee safer. But as News 2's Adam Mincer reports, a leader within the governor's Republican Party says he won't support any bill that includes the word firearm and wants to hear from the NRA before the session.
Gun control! Now!
After the Covenant shooting, the calls for gun reform were deafening. But some lawmakers say a new gun law won't keep the community safer.
Would you consider any legislation that even includes the word firearm in it?
No, what I'm considering does not. Now, there's other thoughts out there, but what I'm considering does not.
Instead, Republican Speaker Pro Tem Farrell Hale is looking beyond guns.
Christmas Farmer didn't use a firearm. He used a different method. And so let's figure out how we address these particular individuals, not all mental health by any stretch of the imagination, but these violent individuals. How do we identify them? And then how do we act accordingly when we do that?
And says he wants to meet with the NRA to discuss how to do that.
Because they have stated publicly that they felt like we need to look at the root cause rather than the item. And so I think because of that, what we're trying to do will be something that they will have some appreciation for.
By not wanting to pass gun reform legislation, the bill Governor Lee proposed to allow courts to prevent dangerous people from having guns is a non-starter for him. But Lee doesn't seem concerned.
A lot of people have some really good ideas about things that we can do to make Tennessee a safer place. I'm very hopeful for it.
And Democrats say bills like what Hale is proposing are out of step with what the majority of Tennesseans want lawmakers to pass.
We've got to get back to the common sense gun laws, licenses required, required training. Republicans want gun sense legislation, and they're ignoring them for lobbyists.
Stay with us. This week continues in a moment, and a conversation with mayoral candidate Stephanie Johnson.